with free, with free healthcare, I feel like a lot of undocumented immigrants were thriving off that, where, something would happen and they could just go to a hospital and they'll get taken care of. And, in that part, that's not fair for us, for the people who are just citizens. They're paying for that to happen.
Yeah, but it's no different than anybody. If you don't have health insurance, and immigrants tend to be really hardworking people. Like the people who are not hardworking are back home. You're there, you're taking a risk, you're risking everything. So your dad, he's gonna start at the bottom and he's gonna say, hey, I can go all the way to the top.
Most of them, they strive for that because what they see when they come to America is what has been preached about for years when coming to America is that.
But again, I can't speak for every immigrant. I don't know every situation, but for my case.
I often refer to Mr. Rashidi as the kindest human being I've ever met. Like he's so kind. And no, but you're such a loving human being. I've never heard you say a negative word about anything or anybody.
Protests that happen in San Diego, I have been a part of them. And I've been in them multiple
Not burning flags, though.
No. In fact, those settings.
So people have the idea, many people have the idea that immigrants take, and they take, and they take, but they don't give equivalent to what they take, what they receive, right? So you receive a lot, like say here in the United States, we're giving, but immigrants aren't necessarily giving back. That's an idea that we have. Do you guys have any thoughts about that?
Well, I have a lot of thoughts when I feel like when anyone mentions that. I see where you're coming from. But
you see where people are coming from.
I see where people are coming from, like as a general concern. Mm-hmm. I feel like any country would realize, like immigrants coming here take advantage of the country. But in the question that you're asking, I find that like statistically, or like I find that hard to be truthful.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. How so?
Because if that were to be true, and I go back home and I ask the people who are working undocumented in the fields and where the fruit markets or wherever, I can ask, how is your home life? And they most times will say, I have nothing. I don't have much.
And they don't
but
receive.
I work.
And they don't receive.
And they don't receive much. They work like 60-hour, incredible, so many hours a week, mm-hmm. barely seeing their own kids. Mm-hmm. So where in that are they taking and receiving more from the United States mm-hmm. is my question. Mm-hmm. Where in that seems like they're living in this country out of luxury.
Mm-hmm. Or in some way that maybe it's just not exactly what it seems from the outside. Yeah. Uh-huh.
I can see where you're coming from also with they receive more than what they give. With free healthcare, I feel like a lot of undocumented immigrants were thriving off that, where, something would happen and they could just go to a hospital and they'll get taken care of. And, in that part, that's not fair for us, for the people who are just citizens. They're paying for that to happen.
Yeah, but it's no different than anybody. If you don't have health insurance, and that,
exactly. Yeah.
I have stories upon stories about people just show up and they're taken care of because they have to be. We're not going to let people die.
But then, going off his point too, I feel like most immigrants, their main goal is to work, is to make a living, is to be able to provide for their family, so they could have the opportunities that everybody else can have. Like my mom, my dad, they came here because they want to give me and my brothers the opportunities to go to college, to get those jobs that they probably couldn't get. And, sometimes even with that, they still make opportunities with what they can make. Like my father, he is an immigrant. He started as a dishwasher, and now he owns that restaurant that he started as a dishwasher for.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So the idea, which is a common story, right? Because your dad, look, I always say this, like the immigrants tend to be really hardworking people. Like the people who are not hardworking are back home. You're there, you're taking a risk, you're risking everything. So your dad, he's going to start at the bottom, and he's going to say, hey, I can go all the way to the top.
Most of them, they strive for that because what they see when they come to America is what has been preached about for years when coming to America is that if you come to America, you can make opportunities for yourself. You can make opportunities for future generations that you will have. So I guess when most people are coming to the U.S., their plan is, I want to make an opportunity from something that I wouldn't have been able to have back at my country.
And like with Mr. Rashidi, it's not for him. It's his children.
Yeah, because like I don't know if you like whenever I'm saying something, when my mom or my dad, whenever they're talking about their story, they never say, sometimes they'll say like themselves like personally, but then they'll say for you guys, for me and my brothers, they wanted a better chance for us instead of just focusing on them. They're thinking about their futures as well. Who we can become if we come here and we make the chance of our opportunities.
So, Emily, I have a question for you. Thanks for that, by the way. So, but people are still going to say, yeah, but you're taking something from what Jose just said, right? Josue? What Josue just said is, yeah, but you're still taking something, right? Like you're moving up, you own the restaurant, but somebody else could own the restaurant. Like what?
Okay, well, I can't talk for every immigrant, but I know from my experience, if I came here to work my ass off. Just like how my mom did it. She came with me when I was 6 and herself. That's it. It was a 2-day long trip. We did it ourselves. And when she got here, she wasn't like, oh my God, I'm American. Like, let's go. I made it. She worked her ass off and she's still working multiple jobs so I could be here and I could have a better education than what she did. I can't talk for every immigrant and why people would think that immigrants take more than what we give, because even from my nuclear family, the people who came over, like it's expensive to immigrate, to get connections, to find people who can help you, to find like routes. It's expensive. Like you can't just get here and be like, okay, I'm gonna live off of like free healthcare and stuff like that. No, you can't, because you have to pay these people back. So it takes time. And who are gonna take the cheap jobs? Who are gonna take the low paying jobs? The immigrants. Why? Because they're just trying to find money and like however way they can. So I don't think it's necessarily true. But again, I can't speak for every immigrant. I don't know every situation, but for my case,
well,
I wish it was seen different.
Yeah, well, it's also complex, right? Because on Tuesday, we talked about Joe talked about depressing wages, right? So undocumented immigrants, in particular, depress wages. But at the same time, you can get a pound of tomatoes for $2. I'm not buying a pound of tomatoes for $5. It's $2, right? So
they're depressing wages because they want to work. So who are the people who have the jobs to give are going to be like, okay, you want to work with me? And they'll lower the wage as much as possible because they know that other people might not take it, but the people who want a job, who just come here, who are trying to make money, they will take it.
So this is the complicated thing, right?
Yes.
Because the owners are going to
benefit from it.
They're going to benefit from it. The consumers are going to benefit from it because, you're not paying union wages for fruit that's being picked out in the field. It's a very complicated back and forth, right? I often refer to Mr. Rashidi as the kindest human being I've ever met. Like he's so kind. And no, but you're such a loving human being. I've never heard you say a negative word about anything or anybody. In the Netherlands right now, there are a lot of people in the Netherlands that think that he never should have been allowed in and he should go home. He should go back to Afghanistan. And Mr. Rashidi, what do you say about that? Even though you were there legally, I mean, the government brought you in, right?
Yes, I'm legally here. And I'm famous in my city. I go every day. 3 days I work, and 3 days I go to the library. I'm the ambassador from the library and help people, other immigration help to learn Dutch. And yeah, it's good for me. I think the people, Dutch people, are kind, thinking for me, and I, I'm in a good situation.
Yeah.
I
And you're
never faced discrimination of so.
you've never faced any
Yeah,
discrimination.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, if people just have to meet you and they can't not like you. But still, people have a certain sentiment. Um, it's very difficult, right? So
Sorry,
go
one
ahead.
thing, I see people with a border. I see people as if a person though is something negative, just I see him as a human, not the Dutch of as a Muslim of Christian of so. Just as a human, human can be good of can be not good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just
Just human. Yeah.
yeah, just human. Yeah,
Yeah.
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 I see. Yeah, I see them as just as human.
Yeah. You do, for sure. Yeah. For you, everybody is interconnected and just an opportunity to love.
As I can, if there's someone help. I think. Yeah, I think she need the borders, the religion of the other things. Just human, and I can help him as I
Yeah.
can. Yeah,
Yeah.
most of the time I can't, but as I do, I help.
Yeah. That's your job. It's a perfect job for you.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Rishidi, you're watching what's happening here in the United States with ICE, right? Yeah, okay. So I'm going to ask a question about that. I have the idea that many people who are cheering for ICE, this kind of thing, I understand that people are saying, look, you broke the law, you came here illegally, and now you have to go and you have to go back and you have to start over again. I understand that. But I have this idea that a lot of people just don't meet immigrants. Like they don't meet people. And if they met people, like Mr. Rashidi, like when you sit down and you talk to him, they don't meet people. And I'm just wondering about some of what's going on today, the rhetoric, the anger, rage toward immigrants. That I wonder how much of it is just that we've never met anybody.
I guess like a lot of that is just going off like stereotypes that we see off the news. Like for a lot of people, like a lot of like the immigration stuff is all stereotypes, or one of the big defenses that people have for immigration is, oh, they're drug dealers. They bring in illegal substances, and people would base it off the news because as you saw, like there's been plenty of videos like recently where we've caught like Venezuelan boats offshore bringing like pounds of.
Wait, hang on though. Are they really boats bringing drugs or are they fishing? How do we know?
That's the gray line question.
That is the question.
We don't know.
Didn't know.
Right? But
Well,
anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, still like they're going off stereotypes of how they view it, and I guess some of the stuff that we do, like sometimes that gives into it, like the protests that happened in San Diego early this year, where we shut down the highway, where we lit a ton of stuff on fire. I remember when I was watching that, I saw the Guatemalan flag waving in there, and I was nervous for the immigrants. So I was like, this just gives a really bad reputation to them on what we're not trying to have on us.
Yeah, and those aren't undocumented people in those
No, those were
protests.
U.S. citizens
Yeah,
giving their
yeah.
opinion. They're the ones that are allowed to speak up through the First
Yeah.
Amendment rights. And
Yeah. You don't go to these protests and see people
no,
without
I
papers.
think most undocumented immigrants probably did when they saw Trump. They didn't think, oh, let's go out to the streets and protest. They probably said, oh,
Let's hide.
let's stay home. Let's not go out as much.
I actually really want to piggyback off of him. Those protests that happened in San Diego, I have been a part of them, and I've been in them multiple
Not burning flags, though.
No, No. In fact, those settings, we want nothing more than to just make our voices heard about our concerns. And even destruction or saying things that are foul language is frowned upon in those protests.
But there's always going to be a few people, and then those people get
Absolutely.
highlighted. And then, just like we know, for example, that undocumented immigrants all over the world, not just in the United States, but everywhere in the world, people without papers have the lowest crime rates of anybody. Right? We just know that because you generally speaking, you just don't commit crimes. Like you hide, you don't do that. We know it's true. Okay? It doesn't matter. Some people still commit crimes. And so then we're like, okay, those get highlighted, and then that becomes the undocumented person, commits a murder, or does something.
I mean, this is the first time I have really been in this setting or have lived in the East Coast. And if I was just to reverse my shoes, I lived here, how many people would I meet who lived in the border cities between Texas, New Mexico, California? How many of them know their stories?
Yeah.
I mean, for me, living in San Diego, I mean, oh my gosh, most of my friends are immigrants or have family who are immigrants or know someone who is an immigrant. And each one of them have a very hard story to tell.
And if it's not a hard story, it's a normal story because they're living their lives just like everybody else is living their life. How much? Here's a question for you. How much is people who are not down on the border? The reason my wife and I went down to the border, and what we did was we flew into Phoenix, and then we just went south. We went to a couple reservations, then we just got down to the border, and then we traveled across down along the border, and we just were going back and forth into Mexico. Just talking to people, talking to everybody. Oh my God. And I spoke Spanish almost the entire time because everybody just spoke Spanish. Everybody spoke Spanish. And the idea was, wow, it sounds like it's really out of control. But it wasn't out of control. It was like, immigration, it's crazy, it's a mess, it's out of control, it's like, it wasn't at all. It was just completely, we talked to border guards and they're like, yeah, no, it's fine, it's here, people back and forth. Everything was just normal. Can any of you speak to that? Like, we have this idea that, it's been fine, but in the past couple of years, during the Biden administration, we completely lost control of it. Do you have any, like in your lives or what you see in your communities,
I guess for most people, what they just saw is the number of people entering the country. So they just saw the huge spike in numbers through the Biden era. It went from really from the lowest that Trump brought it to in 2020. Also,
or there were moments
Yeah.
when there were big groups of like Guatemalans, right? There's like 10,000 Guatemalans marching toward the border. And then in that particular moment, that becomes representative of everybody and everything.
But in reality, I guess like most of the time, it's not like there's going to be a big group of people entering, or there's like a big group. Like most of his like immigrants, I guess, they're probably already once they're in, it's not like they're gonna try to cause issues or anything. They're just gonna
they don't cause.
They're just gonna go. They're gonna try and go find jobs. They're gonna go work. They're gonna go take care of their families. They're gonna go find people they know who can help them get them back on their feet.